The Confederate LeMat revolver has the largest firepower from all Civil War percussion revolvers, firing 9 .42 caliber revolver cartridges and a shotgun barrel charged with 15 .30 caliber buckshots. That's a devastating power in the middle of the 19th century, and guess what? It was invented by a doctor who dedicated his life saving others. An interesting story, isn't it?
Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Capandball here, your favorite gun channel in beautiful bright English language, and today I have a very romantic American Civil War percussion revolver for you today. This is the 10-shot LeMat. Let's learn its history and let's find out how the Pietta repro does on the range today. The LeMat is probably one of the most overrated percussion revolvers of the American Civil War, but this is the kind of arm that you must own once in your lifetime. You don't really know why, but you must own one. This revolver was designed by a French medical doctor, a French-born medical doctor, and it was used by the Confederate States Army, so it's a very interesting piece of history. But before we go on, let me thank you for your support. Your donations through Patreon are vital for keeping the quality of the channel high. Please log into our Patreon page. This is patreon.com/capandball. You will find exclusive content and other benefits here.
Monetization is not always possible in case of firearms-related content, so to keep on working I need your support. Our Patreon page is an excellent platform for such activity. Check out our exclusive articles, films and posts there and join the discussion. These posts add a lot to what I do on the Capandball channel.
Jean-François Alexandre LeMat, the designer of this beautiful revolver, was born in 1821 in Bordeaux, France. And he chose the life of being a priest, but he changed career in a very short time and became actually a medical doctor in 1842 and started to work in an army hospital. But this was not such a long period in his life, because in 1844 he decided to move to the United States to study about diseases like yellow fever, malaria, cholera. He arrived in New Orleans on the 7th February 1844 and started working as a medical doctor, but he also got involved in the cotton trade and tobacco trade as well. By these times, New Orleans was a logistics center for the American Army operating in the Mexican War, so he had very good chances to meet officers of the US Army and also establish great relationships. One of them was a young major called Pierre Gustave Touten Beauregard, future general of the Confederate Army, and they even became relatives. In 1849, he married Justine Sophie Le Prêtre, the daughter of the director of the Citizens Bank.
The LeMat revolver is larger and heavier than the middle frame military revolvers, and probably it is not the most convenient to charge. I prepared paper cartridges for the first session, and after a bit of charge development I settled for 20 grains of 2F Swiss powder and a 4.45 caliber pure lead round ball lubricated with the mix of beeswax and tallow. These cartridges have a good fit for both the chambers and the bore, while they are also easy to ram down. That's the first trial, just to see if the revolver is operating well, so the distance is only 20 paces.
LeMat was a creative guy. He started submitting patents in the 1850s, and up until the end of his life in France, he submitted 36 patents. The first one was a device that helped the ships that ran aground. But his best-known child is the grapeshot revolver, the 10-shot grapeshot revolver, which carried 9 revolver rounds of 42 caliber, and it had a shotgun barrel as the center of the axis. So which became quite fast, very popular, because this is technically double the killing power of a 5 or 6 shot revolver. The patent was filed in 1856 under the number 15925, and it was probably Beauregard who convinced him to move forward with the design and find army business or navy business in it. Let's not forget that the western and the southern border was insecure, and the tension between the northern and southern states were increasing, so this offered kind of good business opportunity for them. The first patent was issued in the United States, but later it was followed by Belgian, French and British patents as well. But the first patent actually described this percussion revolver. Well, he did not patent the entire mechanism, just the shotgun barrel acting as the axis of the cylinder. And of course, the selector on the hammer, which allows you to select whether you are firing the cylinders with the revolver cartridges or the shotgun barrel. We mainly know today the LeMat as a percussion revolver, but let's not forget that this revolver followed the organic development of firearms in the 19th century. In 1858, we already have a patent, a Belgian patent, with pin-fire mechanism, and later it was also patented with the center-fire cartridges as well. LeMat and Beauregard, they were in an informal partnership. Beauregard was a military promoter, and he was quite successful. He was quite good promoter because in 1859 he managed to organize official army tests for the revolver, first in New Orleans and then later in Washington. The first LeMat revolvers, or the revolvers for these trials, were manufactured in the United States by John Crider, that was a gunsmith in Philadelphia, but probably also in Belgium as well. The Crider revolvers had a 42 caliber rifled bore and a 9-shot cylinder and an 18-gauge smoothbore shotgun barrel. Both LeMat and Beauregard were trying to establish the highest level of political connections to support the revolver. For example, LeMat exchanged some letters with John B. Floyd, Secretary of War. And together they managed to organize these army trials. The first army trials were held in March 1859 in New Orleans and then in May in Washington. They were quite successful. Both were quite successful. Now, LeMat actually became one of the most important military personnel of Louisiana because he was appointed the aide-de-camp of the governor of Louisiana, and he received the rank of a colonel. So he was actually a colonel, not like Colt. Even if the results were excellent, it was still a hard business case for any revolvers because the need for revolvers was not too high because it was still peacetime. But this is what the military board said about the revolver. We, the undersigned, examined and tried the grapeshot revolving pistol of Mr. A. LeMat of this city, and feel no hesitation that after close examination of said arm, we consider it a great and important improvement on Colt's revolver. This is the declaration of the military board, 2nd March 1859. The officers of the Washington trials were also supportive. They suggested further field trials, but the Army and Navy orders did not come, so Beauregard and LeMat decided to try to sell the concept on the civilian market as well, without any success.
Let's check now what accuracy the Pietta repro is capable of at 25 meters, shot from a rest. The charge is the same 20 grains of 2F Swiss powder and the .445 caliber round ball. When shooting for maximum accuracy, I always add revolver loop to the chamber mouths. This extra loop will keep the fooling soft, so your revolver will keep the accuracy, and also it will prevent chain fires. The RWS 1075 caps are a bit loose on the nipples, so I squeeze them a bit before putting them on. Because if you lose them while shooting, chain fires can happen from the direction of the nipples as well. Let's check it. Empty. And that's a 25-meter group, ladies and gentlemen. And it is not bad. It's absolutely not bad. Let's say that most of the shots are within the size of the 9 ring, which is quite good, and I'm pretty sure that it can be fine-tuned with a little bit of semolina as a filler in the chamber. But the revolver is functioning perfectly with the 4.45 round balls. I had only one flyer here, but that was probably not the revolver. Well, it's a good gun. It's a good gun anyway. It's heavy, the design is not perfect, but it's a good gun. And romantic, of course.
So Beauregard was looking for partners in the United States while LeMat was doing the same in Europe.
He found a partner for the production, a medical doctor also, who was well known in America and Europe as well. He teamed up with Charles Girard to establish a production facility in Paris to supply the Confederate Army.
What used to be a binary cooperation now became a triangle. And probably this caused some friction between LeMat and Beauregard, so in 1860 Beauregard decided to sell his shares for $10,000 to LeMat, and he did quit the revolver business forever. But probably this was not a good idea, because in 1860 finally the first order arrived from the government of Louisiana for 400 pieces for their militia. And just a year later came the Civil War that multiplied the interest for any new revolver designs first. Second, it multiplied the interest for all the people who had military industry connections in Europe. And LeMat was one of them. He was sent to Europe as an agent of the Confederacy to purchase European-made arms, and while in Europe he established the supply chain for his revolvers also. So finally, in August 1861, the first large government order arrived for 5,000 pieces of these revolvers, LeMat revolvers, and then it was supplemented with 3,000 for the Confederate Navy as well. Now that was a good quantity to start with. So LeMat and Girard established a factory in Paris, France, and started the production immediately. So in 1862, the first batch of 200 grapeshot revolvers finally arrived to the Confederacy. These first models had a sprue trigger guard, the loading rod was on the right side of the frame, they had a ring lanyard ring. So it was quite different from the ones that we see today as a LeMat percussion revolver, and also their barrel was mainly round. Their serial number ranged from 1 to 458, and they found their way to such fames as Beauregard himself or Jeb Stuart. The start was good, but LeMat and Girard had problems with the production. They had quality issues, they had capacity issues, and they had price issues, because it was a very, very expensive revolver compared to the British-made revolvers.
Dark clouds started to gather when Josiah Gorgas was appointed Chief of Bureau of Ordnance and Caleb Hughes as the Army Procurement Officer in Europe. This meant the centralization of the purchases.
And they both preferred British-made car revolvers instead of the expensive and complicated LeMat revolvers. In December 1861, Gorgas ordered the London Armory Company to evaluate the LeMat revolver, and they were not happy with it. They had quality issues, design issues, and cost issues as well. From that point, Gorgas ordered all the shipments that were manufactured in France to first go to England for inspection, to Caleb Hughes, and then go to the Confederacy. Now, this caused a large delay in the fulfilling of the orders. Caleb Hughes, of course, had his reasons. First, he was paid by the London Armory Company, which is always a good reason to reject a revolver like this. Second, it has caliber issues. The 42 caliber of the LeMat revolver is not the same as the 44 caliber of the Colt and the Remington revolvers, which is not good for logistics. You have to make a different cartridge for that. And third, the LeMat was much more expensive. So a LeMat cost $35 Confederate dollars, while the car revolver, the great competitor, was only $5. Now that's a great difference. But the first revolvers finally arrived and saw action in the Confederacy. James Morgan, in his book titled The Recollection of a Confederate Reefer, remembers the LeMat revolver like this. Soon there arrived a Frenchman, Colonel LeMat, the inventor of the grapeshot revolver, a horrible contraption, the cylinder of which revolved around a section of the gun barrel. The cylinder contained 9 bullets, and the grapeshot barrel was loaded with buckshot, which when fired would almost tear the arm off a man with recoil. The first model LeMat had its design flaws, but it was continuously developed. The ramrod was redesigned and moved to the left side of the frame, the lanyard ring became fixed, the trigger guard became oval to allow easier holstering, and the button for dismounting the barrel assembly was changed also for a more convenient use. But the most important change is associated with the internal mechanism. Now, when LeMat designed this revolver, the cylinder locking system of code was still under patent protection, which means that he had to design something completely different. And he came up with a system called the reciprocating pin system, which means that there are tiny holes on the back of the cylinder. I will show you this later. And when the hammer is falling, a little pin is moving forward and engages these little holes on the back of the cylinder and interlocks the system. Now, this was quite a good design, but it had flaws. It had indexing problems. So that's how it works. That's the hand, and that is the reciprocating pin. And you can see that when the hammer is cocked, the pin moves forward, and when we half cock the revolver, it retracts. And the pins, they do engage in these little holes on the back of the cylinder, just close to the ratchet. Now, this system was delicate to manufacture, so in 1863 they switched to a simpler version. They made little interruptions between the cogs of the ratchet on the back of the cylinder, and the flange attached to the hammer engaged these little slots, which was more secure, it was easier to manufacture, and it was stronger as well. Now, this final percussion model was patented in Great Britain, France, and Belgium between 62 and 65. In fact, there were some LeMat revolvers manufactured in Great Britain as well, with small companies like Aston & Francis or Robert Jones. But there was a 1,000-piece batch also, which is quite a large number, that was manufactured by Tippin & Loden in Birmingham. The last delivery to the Confederacy happened in the summer of 1864. The Confederacy was actually running out of time.
That's the cartridge of the shotgun barrel with 15 pellets of 30 caliber and 40 grains of 2F Swiss powder. Let's check the group at 15 paces. Now comes the fun. Let's check what it can do from 15 paces. So out of the 15 pellets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the target. That hurts.
Let's check now what cartridges the LeMat revolver was loaded with. Well, we know that the cartridge is different diameter than the normal 44 cartridge, which means that the Confederacy had to manufacture unique cartridges for these LeMats. And they did. We have to deal with two cartridges. Of course, we need a revolver cartridge and we need a shotgun cartridge as well. If you check the Confederate field manual, you won't find any information. It mentions the Confederate grapeshot revolver. It says, grapeshot pistol. This pistol is manufactured by Mr. LeMat of Paris. It has a cylinder which revolves containing 9 chambers, a rifled barrel and a smoothbore barrel. The latter receives a charge of 11 buckshot and is fired with slight change in the hammer. Some are in our service. Not too much, but we know that there are 2 cartridges. We can also check whether we have a buckshot cartridge mentioned in the field manual, and we have one, but it has a different charge. The field manual says, buckshot cartridges have 4 tiers of 3 buckshot each, inserted like the first, with half stitch between them and finishing with a double hitch. That's a good point, because in the best book we have about the Confederate cartridges by Dean S. Thomas does not show anything like that. But what's up with the revolver cartridges? Well, you must have a different cartridge, otherwise you won't be able to fire the gun because the normal 44 cartridge will not fit into the cylinders. And with this thin ramrod, you won't be able to charge it. So if you check the field manual, you won't find a revolver cartridge for the LeMat revolver. So what can this mean? First, it can mean that there were so few LeMat revolvers in service that they thought that it is absolutely useless to adopt a cartridge for them. Second, they could think that the normal 44 cartridge will fit into the chambers of the LeMat, which is probably completely wrong, as I said, because of the thin ramrod and the smaller diameter cylinder and bore. So it's a good question. I would say that because of the limited number of LeMat revolvers finding their way to the troops, they just thought it's not necessary. Let's see what other references we have. Well, you have an excellent book. This is Roundball to Rimfire by Dean S. Thomas. This is 4th part. This is an excellent series of books if you want to know more about the cartridges of the American Civil War. Part 4 is dealing with the Confederate arsenals, and we have information about LeMat cartridges here. They are actually original cartridges. If you check the book, you can see bullets here. With the bullets, diameter are ranging from 41 to 42, 425 actually, and their weight between 150 and 180 grains. They also have a buckshot cartridge here, which says it is loaded with 5 tiers of 3 buckshots, 30 caliber buckshots. So altogether 15 buckshots, not 14 and not 11, as it is stated in the field manual. Interesting. It is also interesting to see that the powder charges of these cartridges, the revolver cartridges, seem to be quite limited. They are combustible envelope cartridges, and probably they cannot hold more than 20 grains of powder. We can find some additional information in the report of the 1859 May Washington Arsenal trials, which stated that the revolver cartridges that they used, they were charged with an elongated ball and with 16 grains of pistol powder. This must have been some kind of fine grade black powder, while the grapeshot barrel was first charged with 15 30 caliber pellets, 30 caliber buckshots, and 40 grains of unspecified type of powder, probably musket powder or something like that. But they also tried that shotgun barrel with single ball, which had a size of 0.640 inches. They also tried the terminal ballistics of these charges, and they found out that at 30 paces, the penetration of the revolver cartridge bullet was 2.5 inches. The single ball bullet at 30 paces, it was also 2.5 inches, and at 15 paces, the penetration of the buckshot was only 1 inch. Not too much, but probably enough for causing a wound. We are going to find that out.
And this is the single ball cartridge for the shotgun barrel, charged with 40 grains of 2F Swiss powder. In our case, the target will not be pine wood as in the case of the 1859 trials, but ballistic gelatin. And that's the single ball cartridge. Oh. Okay, so that was the single ball cartridge. You could see it has a beautiful penetration. The gelatin block did not stop it, which means that you can fire through at least 2 enemy soldiers without any problem. And it even penetrated this wooden panel here with a little beautiful round hole. So this is effective. Let's check now the velocity of this round ball. ...174 meters per second. And now comes the fun part again. Let's check the penetration of the buckshot cartridge from 15 paces. The enemy is ballistic gelatin. Cannot track multiple projectiles, unfortunately. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pellets out of the 15 from 10 paces, which is not too good. But still we have 5 serious wounds in the gelatin block. And the penetration is not too high, it is only 3-4 centimeters, which means it's a wound, but it's not lethal. It won't reach the vital organs, for sure. And some even bounce back.
The Pietta repro is a well-made arm, but it is not easy to determine exactly which LeMat it was copied from. So Pietta calls them Army, Cavalry and Navy version, but this has nothing to do with the original historical models. So let's try to find out which original it was copied from. So the ramrod is on the left side of the frame, the trigger guard is round, and the lanyard ring is fixed, which means it's a second model. It's clearly a second model. Now, from the second model, it's an early model because it has the simple pinned selector for the two nipples, two barrels, and also it has the reciprocating pin system, which is also proof that it's an early second model revolver. It's also a good question what caliber is this Pietta model. Well, it is mentioned as 44 caliber, but it is not the same 44 caliber as in the case of their other 44 caliber Colt and Remington revolvers. This is smaller in diameter, but not 42 as the original, so this is somewhere between. If you check the internet forums about the quality of these arms, you often find the statement that it is very easy to bend the thin little ramrod. Well, this is true. It is easy if you load it with the 451 or 454 bullets. The best way to check it is if you take a 445 ball. This is a 445 round ball that I use for my single shot 45 caliber muzzle loaders. If you put it on the muzzle, you will see that it's oversized, so the rifling will grab it. And this is only a 445 round ball, so which means that the bore does not need any larger bores than the 445. If you do the same with the cylinder, it's a bit harder, but we can do it. If you do the same with the cylinder, you can also see that it does not fall in the cylinder. Actually, the cylinder is tapered, so the hole is getting smaller as you are going deeper, which means that when you're ramming it down, even if you don't have, let's say, a perfect round circle that you cut off by the cylinder mouth when you ram the bullet into on the powder, it will still seal. Of course, you will have to use the lubrication to avoid chain fires, and you must have perfectly fitting, tightly fitting nipples to avoid chain fires, but the 445 round ball is actually good for this revolver. So I really have to say that the Pietta arm is a well-made arm. It has some flaws, but these flaws are not coming from Pietta quality, they are coming from the original design. The first one is the ramrod. Of course it is thin, it is easy to bend it, especially if you're using it with harder than pure lead bullets, or you are using it with 4.51, 4.44 or 4.57 revolver round balls, so don't do that. Second, the loading arm is held by this little spring here, which is quite weak. So which means that when you're firing the gun, it will move. It will move. Third, the rammer of the shotgun barrel is located in this hole in the loading arm. So when you're firing, it is only held in place by the friction of the head of the rammer. Now, this is going to move also, which means that if you're not careful enough with the third or fourth shot, you are going to fire this downrange and you are going to spend your day looking for your shotgun rammer or trying to replace it. Third, I also read that there are some shooters who had problems with the indexing of the revolver caused because of the reciprocating pin system. Now, mine works perfectly, so I really have to say that I don't have that issue. Fourth, that's the same as on Colts. The sights are on moving parts, which means that we have the rear sight on the top of the hammer and we have a front sight that is dovetailed, by the way, so you can set it, which is also on the moving part because you can remove the cylinder assembly from the shotgun barrel. But this is not a precision arm, so don't think that this is a competition arm. This is a combat arm, and for a combat arm we don't care if the impact point at 25 meters is 2 centimeters to the right or to the left or up or down. It just does not matter. Fourth, I had some problems with the force of the mainspring. Well, cocking this revolver is quite hard. It is hard because the mainspring has to be strong, because when you select the shotgun barrels, there is only 1.5 centimeter way that the hammer will travel for hitting the nipple, which means you have to have an excessive force there. I also had some misfires with the shotgun barrel. There were several times when I had to recock the hammer and fire again on the nipple to fire it. The percussion caps I was using was the standard 1075 RWS caps, which usually works fine. But we can live with that. We can really live with that. So all in all, the LeMat revolver is a beautiful design. It's a very interesting design, but it was a commercial failure. Even in an environment when the Confederacy was in need of every single firearm that he could purchase, it could not break through. Technically, there are two reasons for this. First of all, I strongly believe that there was a strong mismanagement behind it. And second, it was really an overcomplicated arm compared to the other contemporary revolver designs. Altogether, there were probably not more than 2,500 revolvers that find their way to the Confederacy. And we can also say that probably the world was not ready for such sophisticated design. But as the LeMat design followed in the pinfire, the rimfire and the centerfire age as well, and did not really catch up, I really have to say that the market was just not interested in having a shotgun barrel on a revolver. So all in all, the LeMat revolver is a romantic revolver, it's a unique piece of history, and of course, it is the status symbol of the Confederate general. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for tuning into the Capandball YouTube channel. If you like what I do, then please share, comment, subscribe, like. They will help the channel to grow. Also, please visit our Patreon page, register for exclusive content. So until next time, stay cool and keep your powder dry.